Welcome everybody to the show. Today we're talking about administration versus teachers. Is it adversarial? Is that just played up? I guess, Jacob, I'll start with you.
Sure.
You've had experience, maybe not just direct, maybe also there's been, ancillary experiences, people that you know who've dealt with that administration. What would you say is the greatest source of conflict between admin and teachers?
I mean, I think number one would be probably communication. Just sometimes there's a lack of it, or maybe misunderstanding, and that goes for any job, right? Whenever you're having supervisors with workers, that could be an issue anywhere. But for sure in education, I think that's an issue at where I work, and I've been at I've had three different school experiences, different schools I've worked at, and I would say at every single one, there's been and not all administrators, not all teachers feel this way, but there are some where communication isn't coming down, or it's not coming down clearly. And because of that, there's misunderstanding. And because of misunderstanding, there's frustration by the teachers a lot of times. And sometimes the administrators too, to be fair, they probably are just as frustrated.
So you're saying a general lack of communication. Maybe there's not a clear vision for the school, or maybe there's a new kind of approach. Perhaps there's a way of there's a new lingo in the air, or a new style, or maybe a new focus, and there might be teachers who are puzzled by it. Like, where did this come from? How did this start? Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, I that's a big part of it. Even for younger teachers who, I mean, when I say younger, I should say new teachers who come into the schools. They don't always know the history of the school, or history of the strategies or programs that are being, like, for example, we have a writing program at my school that a lot of the new teachers don't know anything about. That's not their fault. And it could be a little frustration in their part, like, wow, I mean, we keep hearing this program, but we don't know what it is. And so to communicate with the staff and say, this is how this program, maybe more training on certain programs that have been in existence for a while. And even the vocabulary, I remember when I first started, I was very frustrated because it's, as you know, Ruben, we have our own little vocabulary in education, right? All these acronyms and so forth, and it could be a little daunting when you first start teaching. And so the idea is to, obviously find someone to mentor you and to get that down pat. So I've had the fortune to be a mentor for the last a little over 15 years, maybe about 17 years now. And that's been one thing that's come up at times where they're like, wow, we don't even know what these terms are.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about in the area of direct meetings, or perhaps adversarial actions in some way?
Like evaluations, you mean?
Perhaps related to evaluations, not
Sure.
necessarily just evaluations, but you tell me.
Yeah.
Is that an issue?
Well, I mean, I've seen that be an issue, and sometimes I think the teacher that's being evaluated, or the teacher that's being observed, or is being written about, talked to by an administrator, that at times has been frustrating. I know, not for myself, but for those teachers. Over the years, I've had, like I said, I've had the opportunity to mentor several people, and one of the things that's come up is that the person talking to the administrator, the teacher, is feeling that maybe they're not being heard, or they're not being understood of what they're doing. Maybe they're not even being respected of maybe their expertise in teaching, and maybe looked down upon. Now, not all administrators do that, but there have been some who do that.
It seems like you're being very careful. You're dancing around. Let me throw this at you, because I have had though I haven't had too much experience getting in trouble.
Sure.
I have had, I think maybe would you say that most teachers have been brought in, including you? I'm assuming in all your years of teaching,
Sure.
you've been called in for maybe something that you said,
Yeah.
or something that you did that threw a student off, or or a parent
Yeah, let
and
me. Yeah,
and, and then brought you in. So I'm gonna throw this out because I've had that happen.
yeah, for
Um,
sure,
I've been handled really well. Like I feel like
sure.
my admin really did a good job of
Hmm.
listening. But there have been a couple of times when I feel so. This is my issue. There have been a
Sure,
couple of times when I feel like it was a misunderstanding. So no harm, no foul.
sure.
It got cleared up. But I have felt like they kept some kind of um, a record. I'll give my only complaints that I have, and like I said, generally I feel like I've been treated really well.
Okay.
However, the two issues I have on what I've seen is I feel like admin is not very quick to apologize
Hmm.
if there was a misunderstanding
Sure.
on their part,
Right.
where they brought you in. It's going to be, and then they go, "Oh no, it was
It was
very
nothing or something.
it was nothing. It was there's been no indication, no communication of we kind of dropped the ball on this. We didn't ask questions. We just
Yeah.
assumed. And there's also a feeling that I've gotten that there's been
Hmm.
a running record. Like, hey, we're gonna hold on to this anyway in your record. Like it feels like, and I could be wrong about this,
Well,
but it feels
every
like
teacher. Oh, I think every teacher has a file, right? I know at without where I work, there's a file, and I believe I've never asked to look at my file. Actually, that might not be true. I think many years I did, but I think, and I might be corrected here, but I believe I'm correct here. You could ask to look at that file, but I don't think nobody promotes to look at it. I don't think anybody says, "Hey, you could look at your file." I think you have to ask for it, and then it could be shown
that
because
sounds very what's the word?
it
That
does.
sounds
It seems like, am I doing the right thing by asking? Yeah.
well, no, that sounds very troubling if you were
Mm,
to hear at a meeting, by the way, we have a file on you. If you want to look at your file, that sounds
yeah,
scary.
it does. It does. I mean, when you were sharing that, I remember a time some years ago, and I just counted, Ruben, I had over like 30 administrators I've worked with. So there's many, and I would say most of them are good people and work hard. There's always a couple you go, wow, what's going on there? But most of them are hardworking, good people. And so there was this one incident where a student um, was upset. And I guess he told his mother something I shared, and I didn't know this at the time. And the parent called the principal, and the principal calls me and says, "You need to be at a meeting at this time tomorrow." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, what's going on?" Because I've been to parent meetings before, and he wouldn't tell me. And I said, "What?" And then I talked to the parent. The parent wouldn't tell me, and I'm like, "What am I going into? Do I take a union rep? I mean, is this a serious meeting? I don't remember this incident. I don't remember any incident that I had with a student. So I couldn't sleep the night before, and I think that could have been taken care of. I think what should have happened is the principal should have told me, this is what it is, and this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But
But
no, he
what
went.
was it? What
So
was
what
it?
happened was, it was a day where a young man was asking me for his how he could move up his grade. I think it's getting an F to a D, and it was a very highly stressful day. I say it's highly stressful because the students at the meeting said, "Mister, you were very stressed that day because this happened, this happened." I said, "Oh yeah," and no excuses because I shouldn't have answered this way. I think I said something to him like, "What is it? Why am I stressed? Why is that my concern?" And that's not a good way of handling it. I should have said that to him. He was very hurt because he thought, not thought, but he felt like we had a good relationship. So it was more like a hurtful feeling. So when we went to the meeting, he shared that he was hurt. And I said, "Oh, I want to apologize for hurting you." And I really did mean it. I didn't mean to hurt you. I shouldn't have said that. Um,
I
it
think
was
that's a really important kind of lesson in how to handle things, like to not be defensive and just be
right.
willing to
And I
yeah.
was wrong. Yeah. I could be like all defensive, like, "What are you talking about?" No. And I think it's because of maturity at the time for myself, and not that I'm always doing the right thing, but I felt like at that time in my life, I was able to communicate exactly how I felt, and which was, I apologized. I was wrong. That meeting was so short. It was over. Principal never said anything to me afterwards. I was like, "Does he want to talk to me?" He said, "No, everything's fine." And I felt like, wait a minute, this could have been handled differently. He
How
could have
could it
called
have
me.
been handled differently? What
This
is
is
it?
the deal. I couldn't sleep the night before. He could have just said,
So,
"Hey, Jay,
so they should have just said right away, this
right
is
away.
what it is.
This is there's something
So
a
you don't have to
complaint."
fall asleep on it or lack of sleep. You don't have to.
Right. It just said, "Hey, this is what's happening. Be prepared." Because I went in there not knowing
Right.
what was
And
going to
so it
be said.
troubled you. So
It troubled me.
this is true about possible disciplinary action, or
Sure.
maybe that's too harsh to say this, but when you're being, summoned by admin,
Right.
this is a stressful thing. You
Hmm.
don't know what's going to be communicated to you. You feel the worry. Um, I could think of two or three examples. I had the same thing happen to me.
Hmm.
Something that I said to a student, and I couldn't even remember what I said. I was like, I do not know what he's talking about, and I think you're a good kid. I don't remember getting mad at you. I don't remember
Right.
saying anything to you. Oh, wow! I heard you say. I go, okay. But that kind of panic that sets in leading
Hmm.
up to the meeting, I think that that's a very real thing for teachers.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't want. I mean, we're human beings. We get stressed. We have other. We have, as you know, Ruben, we have a lot on our plates, and so do they, the administrators. But that could have helped. That's a type of communication. Remember, like I shared before, most of the issues with teachers and administrators is about communicating, and how you communicate. When I went through my administrative program years ago, one of the things that I learned was to be a servant leader, right? So to be someone who would say, "Hey, you know what? You're having a tough time. Let me go in and teach one of your classes. Let me help you out." I have never had an administrator say, "Hey, let me teach one of your classes," or "Let me help you out. Your father passed away," or "Hey, you know what? This is a tough time you're going through right now." I've had people be kind and so forth, but not to serve me in that way. And so I think that is a very important thing to remember when you're in leadership like that, is that, hey, you know what? People are people. We go through things. And we're reviewing a film this week dealing with a teacher who has some really, really deep issues. And I think people forget that we're humans, and we need to be, handled with care sometimes regarding things like this, because we have grades, papers are grade, we have students to
And
deal with. I'm not sure about you, but I have like over 220 students, so it's a lot. So
so that's what an admin can do,
yeah.
but we can't control what admin does
No, we
sometimes.
can't.
How does a teacher need to respond? You mentioned already the idea of being willing right away to apologize for something that you
For sure.
said, because admin just wants, most of the time they just want to clean it up and make sure it doesn't happen again. Is there anything else to remember when you are
Well,
being
I mean,
some-
when you're thinking about us as teachers, I do, like I said, I do work with a lot of new teachers. So one thing I always share with them, Ruben, because the first 2 years, as you know, most schools, you're like in this period of probation, right? And I always share, you know what, you need to, watch it and make sure you do what you need to be doing, follow their instructions, the administrators, even after the 2 years, of course, but for sure those first 2 years, if there is, school vision, mission, make sure you know it, make sure
well,
you do it, right?
I guess what I'm asking is, we can't control everything admin does.
Right.
How should we how should we behave as teachers when we get summoned? So it's already happened. We're in trouble.
Yeah. I
I mean,
think,
of course, I'm not saying something egregious and something horrible.
right,
I'm
right.
saying, so you've been summoned. So then what?
I think now, as being a teacher for 30 years now, if I'm being summoned, I don't know what it is. I'm bringing my union rep, because
Oh, so
everyone know,
you're
yeah.
wow.
If it's for something I don't know what's going on, like if I would have known before in the past, I would have probably taken a union rep with me if I didn't know what I'm walking into, right? Because you want to have somebody on your side. You want to have another person who heard the same thing you're hearing. And like I said, Ruben, it's probably going to be nothing. But what if it is something? And now you have someone else to say, "Hey, I have your back." And the administrators know that, hey, that's how it is. They're not supposed to take offense to that. But as a teacher, I'm going to do that unless it's something very like I know it's
I'm
what
gonna
the meeting's about.
I'm gonna differ with you slightly. I'm gonna
Go ahead.
differ with you in this way. I wouldn't bring a union rep because um because you don't know what it is. And if it's very minor, then it could be handled very quickly. And I don't think a union rep is necessary. That's just me.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but
I think because of experience,
depending on what it is,
Mhm.
um, clearly, I mean, so I'm going to just tell you for myself, my experience, something very minor happened last week. It was a complete misunderstanding. And I didn't need a union rep, and it was taken care of that day. So I'm just saying, you're right. I just think it depends. Once you find out what it is, it depends.
Yeah, if you know what it is, you don't need to. But like from saying, if I don't know what it is, that's actually how I feel. I feel like,
Yeah.
at this stage in my career, I'm like, wait a minute, why do you need to see me? And you're not telling me?
Well,
No, I'm gonna get
well,
someone in there with me.
we disagree on that. I just feel
Yeah.
like once you find out, then you proceed however you need to.
Mhm.
So I would also maybe add to be very careful with what you say,
Mhm.
in the sense that uh, you know, what you say may be held against you,
Sure.
which is really weird for me to say, but I guess I'm reacting to some people that I've seen who've just got in trouble by the things that they said in the course of nothing outrageous in terms
Right.
of accusations, but you start to get angry and you start to get defensive when you just admin should ask more questions for sure.
Sure.
That's one of the things that I said, I think in the outset, that admin, sometimes I felt like haven't asked enough questions. They just made
Mhm.
assumptions. I think similarly, we need to ask some questions and not
Yeah.
be so defensive if something pops up.
Yeah.
But
Well, I like to say a couple of things to that. One is that sometimes there's simple things like they're asking you to do, like, "Hey, this is the program that we're doing. Let me coach you through it." And I think we should be defensive of that. Like, okay, let me, or I would, or ask them to model it for you. I mean, I think that's something that we need to do more is to say, "Hey, why don't you model that for me?" Because we're modeling it for our
right.
students, things
Well,
that we want.
that's not being defensive. That's asking good questions.
Right. I agree. And so that's something to do. Because I share with teachers, 'cause like I said, I'm talking to a lot of young people all the time. And I'm like, hey, you know what? They're asking you to do something, you do it, it's going through, it's something that the school has adopted for sure. Now, obviously, if there's something you're concerned about, you obviously want to have somebody to look out for you. That's understandable. I think one thing for sure, Ruben, is that sometimes if you're being, let's say, evaluated and you don't agree with the evaluation, you don't have to sign that evaluation. You could say, I signed that I read it. There's a portion where it's okay, you read it. That's fine. But you don't have to actually say I agree to it. And I think
Right.
sometimes young people especially don't know that. Like, wait a minute, I thought I just have to sign it. No. You could just
And
say I disagree with
let
your
me
evaluation. Yeah.
and let me ask this question. Don't well, two questions. Don't you
Sure.
agree, first of all, no, this issue with evaluations,
Hmm.
isn't it true that many admins differ from one another in what they're expecting to see?
Yeah.
And right?
Subjective. Yeah.
And so I teach my students, I say, a very valuable question when you come into a classroom is to ask the question, what does the teacher want? What's the result here? What is he looking for?
Right.
Because I'll teach them we'll read a whole passage. You have to read this
Mm-hmm.
whole short story, and here are the questions. Well, wait a minute, look at the questions first before you even read the story, and maybe you don't need to read the whole story. You just need to look for because your goal is to find out.
Sure.
Similarly, we need to, right? And so my question to you is, can you go to admin before they observe you and ask, what are you looking for?
Yeah. For A, yes, you can do that. B, I think they're supposed to communicate with that. You're supposed to have a pre-meeting, but I think sometimes what happens is
Sometimes they don't.
they don't. Yeah, they don't. And B,
And
if they don't do that, they may be looking for something, they find something else. And you go, oh, sometimes I think, Ruben, and I might be wrong. I hope I get corrected by admin on this one. I'm about to say is that it's kind of hard. And I've heard someone say this once. That's why I'm going to say this. I've never heard an admin come through somewhere and say everything's perfect. They like to have to find something for you to work
I
on,
agree.
you know?
Yes,
And I think that's wrong. I
I
think
do too.
that's 100% wrong. And I've heard one admin tell me that. And I said, what? And I think he even felt like, ugh. I go, yeah, that's bogus. You know, you should just if you come in one day and say everything's great, man,
You
that would
know,
make us feel good, wouldn't it? Everything's great.
sometimes, sometimes, you know, a lot of often somebody needs to work on something.
Of
Let's
course, I
be
do a lot
honest.
of times. Yeah.
But sometimes, hey, you nailed it. I don't know. I agree with you. I
I
think
mean,
it's
don't we do that with our kids? I
I think
mean,
it's silly. You're always looking for something. It's a
we have
little
to
bit
find something to work
naive.
on
A
because
little bit.
nothing's, yeah. And I think they're being told that to be fair to them, I really believe they're getting it from their supervisors. And so I know that they're held accountable too. And even when they're having to write up certain teachers, I think they're also pushed, you know. So it's a very stressful job, to be fair to the admin. At the same time, we're on the front lines, man. So I always side with the teachers because I'm a teacher,
We're on
and
the front. We're on the front
we're on
lines.
the front lines. And I'm sorry. And then when they say, "Oh, we have a tough job," yes, you do, but you don't have my tough job. I refuse to equate the two jobs. They're not. They're not. We now their
Wow.
job is stressful, so is mine, but I'm in the front lines. They're not.
I feel good.
Mhm.
I never worry about admin observing me, and I tell my
Right.
admin, walk in anytime you want.
Mhm.
What do you got to tell me? I feel like when I first started teaching, though,
Mhm.
that service time, and I think it might be a valuable thing to say, hey, what are you looking for? What? And that might sound like you're
Mhm.
trying to, you know, cover yourself, but hey, you could learn a lot from that kind of a discussion. Um,
Sure.
but you're right. A lot of times they already tell you what they're looking for. But any last words on the admin teacher adversarial relationship?
Yeah, I don't think it should be. I don't think it has to be adversarial. I mean, I would say I get along with all the people that I work who are at my school. I think we have seven, Ruben. I have seven
Well,
administrators.
it was a question mark. It was
Yeah,
adversarial relationship question mark
yeah,
because that's the idea. You know, you might get along with them all, but and I might, but we've
yeah.
seen issues, haven't we? And your overall
And there have been times
here
where
is
I haven't got
communication.
along. Yeah.
Communication is the most
Yeah.
prized thing within that relationship.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I now that you even share that, I just thought of a time a few years ago where someone came to me and said, "Oh, this is not going to happen for you anymore." I'm like, "Oh, when were you going to communicate this to me?" Like the day before school's going to start. So yeah, I think that's the big thing is communication, and for both sides, and like any relationship, right? I mean, marriage, friendships, you need to communicate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.